Hey guys, I'm going to explain um, all the milk functions within DSX. On Diaspora recently, there's a lot of people interested in turning milk or turning the steam heater off, so they might not use milk and want the steam heater turned off. Um, there's a couple of reasons behind why you might want to do that. It, when the machine starts up from cold, if you haven't got the steam heater on, it can reach temperature a little bit quicker because it doesn't need to keep heating the steam up to temperature as well. And I guess there's also the argument that it uses slightly less power because it's not, it doesn't have the steam heater powered on. So anyway, we'll run through that. On the Insight skin, John's recently added a toggle button on the steam page that to enable and disable steam. It's important that if you disable steam on Insight, that you go back and turn that on. Otherwise, steam's not going to be on. He's added that function after I've created DSX, so DSX doesn't actually turn that back on, and that function's done within Insight. So anyway, just something to be aware of there. So probably the first thing we want to do is set up our steam calibration, and this is the same regardless of what skin. So we go into the app settings, go into machine, into calibration, and on the first calibrate page, we've got two settings for steam. We've got steam temperature, steam flow rate. We want to set that up first. So prior to Insight getting that toggle switch, the way people would turn steam off would be to turn the temperature down, and you can see here it's turned it off, and that will effectively do the same thing and turn the steam heater off. And what DSX does is it does a similar thing. It turns the temperature off in the same way, but it remembers this setting here, so that when it turns it back on, it sets that setting back. But anyway, what we want to do here is set these two settings. Some time ago, I went through and tested each possible variable, so in 5-degree increments here, and I can't remember what increments here, but anyway, I did a ton of steaming, steamed to the exact same temperature each time, and then I would weigh the volume before and the volume after, and then calculate how much water, or the percentage of water that was added to the milk from steaming. And the way to add the least amount of water to your milk is to have maximum temperature and minimum flow. I'll just note here that this slider does go to 170. However, the maximum setting the machine will accept is 165 degrees C. So even if you had this at 170, it would still be setting 165 degrees C, unless that's changed more recently. That was the case. So I set it to 165. I think the default is 160, unless that's changed as well. I'm pretty sure it used to be 160, but I use 165 degrees C, and I select it to a minimum. Now, if I was only going to steam small volume, say anything below 180 mils or 180 grams, I'd probably just use 0.4 mils per second, particularly if I was using my small pitcher. I use the medium pitcher. My wife likes to use between 200 and 220 grams of milk, or probably anywhere from 180 up to 220 she uses. And once you get above 200 mils or 200 grams, I find 0.4 mils per second is a little bit slow to churn. You've got to be a bit more precise to get that milk spinning around in the jug, which is what our goal is, to churn so those bubbles break up into micro bubbles. So for that reason, I go to 0.5 mils per second, even though it's only the next dot up. That's what's that, 20% faster flow rate. So it does make quite a difference. And so that, anyway, they're the settings I use. I use 0.5 mils per second, 165 degrees C. So I've set that. Now, the next thing we want to set up is the DSX steaming function. So one of the unique features about DSX is that we can set the steam timer by weighing the milk. So what we do is we tear the scale, we pour some milk into our pitcher, we sit the pitcher on the scale, then we can then tap this icon here, and it would set the timer so that that volume of milk will steam to the same temperature that we set up in our calibration. So you basically, it doesn't matter how much milk you use, you're going to set the timer so it steams to the same temperature each time. And when we've got that set up, you'll see a net weight here. So when we put the weight onto the scale, it will show the gross weight, which includes the milk pitcher, but it'll calculate a weight here showing the weight of the actual milk in the jug. So to set that up, we need to go into our setup page. So this is our steam by weight setup page, and what we want to do first of all is set up the dry weight of our pitchers that we're going to use. So I'm only really using the medium pitcher, so I've got these two set off. If I was using this pitcher or swapping between pitchers for some reason, I would set up a weight for this one, and I can set up to 3 pitchers. So to set them up, what we do is we tear the scale, just put our dry milk jug on the scale. That'll give us a weight here, and then we just tap this section to record that weight. I'm just using the app in simulation mode, so I've just got it on my Mac here. So I've just got a dummy value of 18 grams. But if I was to tap here, you can see now it's recorded that scale weight here to that milk jug. So now, if I was to go back to the workflow page here, you can see I can toggle between those two jugs. And you'll also notice it's not toggling through, as I tap this, it's not toggling the L jug, the large jug, and that's because I've got it turned off. So if I had a weight set to that, and we go back, it would toggle through the 3 jugs. You can see there. So anyway, because I'm not regularly using those jugs, well, I do have a set on my machine anyway, in case I do use them. But if you only had one jug, you can tap the X here, and that'll take that weight out and turn it off and remove it from the rotation. You will notice a similar thing for the bean container here. So I don't use this function, but some people want to use a similar function where they put the beans into the container and then tear the scale and weigh the container with those beans. So what it'll do is give you a net weight here, and it will DSX will realise that you're using a container, and then when you tap this icon here, it'll only set the net weight instead of the gross weight. Anyway, that's a bit off topic for steaming, but anyway, that's what that's for. So we'll go back to here and finish setting this up. So what we need to do now is we need to set these 2 values. And what we do is we just weigh out a certain volume of milk. It's probably best to weigh out a volume that you would commonly use. And just weigh that volume of milk and then set this value here. So say I weigh out 200 grams. I'll record 200 grams here. Now if I weighed out 197 grams, it doesn't have to be a round figure. You just want an accurate setting or an accurate weight. So weigh that milk before you start steaming. Record that. Then go back and steam that milk. Use your thermometer, steam it, and manually stop it at the temperature that you like. Before you do that though, when you go back to this page here, just set your steam timer to something that's going to be well above what you're going to require to steam that milk, so that it doesn't stop early on you. So we steam that, manually stop, and we take note of how long it took. So on the steaming page, it'll have how long you steamed for, and just record that value in here. So I'm not sure. You probably steam for 200 grams. You probably steam somewhere around 46, 43 seconds maybe to get to 165 degrees C. Once you've set that, you won't have to set it again. Although now and then I do come into here, and say in the winter, I usually steam slightly hotter, so I usually bump this up a couple seconds and just bump it down. So you can adjust it on the fly as well if you want a little bit hotter or colder. Anyway, once you set up this calibration page, you don't need to come back here. You can come in here in the workflow page. So when we go back to the home page, from now on, all I do is weigh my milk. I tap this button here, it says loaded, and that sets that steam time according to the weight I've got. If you want to set a manual steam time, you can tap into here and then just adjust the manual steam time here. So that's basically how you use a steam timer. What we want to note though is these are our favourite cups, and any setting that's displaying here, including our steam time, we'll say to our favourite cups. And what's probably more important here is that we can save the steam in an off state to our favourite cups, and we can also save the steam time to our favourite cups. So if I go into the workflow page, I can turn that steam to off by scrolling down that timer towards 0, and we'll turn off. So if I'm making some drinks that don't require steam and some drinks that do, I can set up the favourites according to those drinks. So let's do that for an example. Say for instance I want a different profile. That's a profile name that's loaded. So I can tap on that. That's just a shortcut to the profile list. And say I want to make a dark coffee, and I was going to use say filter 2.1. It looks like it's a very long flow. So anyway, I'll use that just for the example. I'll go OK. So I've loaded that profile. So that's a 15 gram dose I generally use. I use a smaller basket, and I use 15 gram is generally the recipe for that profile. I don't use any milk, so I'm going to have that turned off. And I'll leave my flush timer as is. Say I use a volume of water and I want to use weight. Say I want to add some water to this profile, which I wouldn't because this is going to stop at 100 grams anyway. But if I had a different profile, I want to add water, I could add water here. So in this case, I'm going to add 100 grams. I'm going to dilute this even further to 100 grams. It'll be quite a weak dark coffee. Now, when I've set this stop and wait for the water, you'll notice here that it's give us a message saying check the water volume, and that's because the machine's going to stop at whichever value comes first, and because the water volume is set to 10 mil, it's never going to reach 100 grams because it's going to stop at 10 mil. So what we want to do is increase that some value well above this 100 gram. Don't increase it to the same because the water calculation, volume calculation, is not so accurate and it's likely to stop it early. So just keep going up. And when that message disappears, you know you're well above a point that's going to interfere with our stop at weight, our water stop at weight. So now we've set that, I'm going to save everything set up the way I want it. I'm going to save that to this favorite here. So all I do is tap this icon, get the save message. Now all those settings are saved. So now I want to set up another favorite for a milk drink. I'm going to go back to my my D-Flow profile, and I'm going to select my La Pavoni. I'm not sure why I've got two, but I'll just check that. So that it looks about right. On this one, I dose 18 grams is my typical dose, so I'm just going to set that. There's multiple places you can set it. I'm just setting it in the D-Flow profile wizard because I was on that page. So I'll go back now. We could have set it here, or we could have waited as well. So anyway, we've got our weight set up. We've got our desired shot ratio. So I'm going to stop at 46 gram. So for this one, for this particular bean, I wanted to do a 2 to 2.5, say for instance. I can just adjust that ratio here. And if I went back to the profile wizard, you'll see it's changed it here too. So it doesn't matter where you change, it'll reflect anywhere within other pages as well. So I've got that set up now. I'm going to steam milk for this one. And all I really need to do is turn it on because to have a positive value here, because I weigh my milk every single time. So they go to the same temperature. So even though for me, I typically weigh 160 grams of milk and my time should be the same all the time. When I pour that milk in, sometimes it might be 159 grams, it might be 165 grams. You know, it's a splash different between times. So I don't have to be that accurate. I sort of just fill up by sight to where I'd normally fill, and then I weigh it, and the time will adjust. But I do know somewhere around that 30-second mark. So I'm just going to set that. And the reason I'm going to set close to what I would normally steam at is that if for some reason I forget to weigh my milk, I don't want it stopping early. So, I mean, I could set that. It's probably safest bet is to set it higher and then stop it manually if I feel. But anyway, I've got a milk set. The important thing here is that it's turned on so that it turns the steam heater on. I don't use water stopper weight. So if I go back to the home page now, we've got our water stopper weight setting here. And if I turn that to off, that setting will disappear. So it's just information on the screen that I don't want. The volume will stay there because you can't turn that off, but the weight setting will disappear. So anyway, I have that set off. I'll just have that set to low. The only reason I have it set to low is for some reason if it started, you know, I just wanted to pour out minimal water so that it doesn't make a mess a bigger mess everywhere. So just a safety thing, but it's really irrelevant. It's probably more relevant if you do have a group head controller because, I mean, if you bumped it by mistake or if you've got a phantom tap or something. Anyway, it's not so important. So I've got this set up now the way I want it. I'm going to save that to my pink cup here. So I tap that and it's saved. Now when I go to the home page, if I toggle between those two favourites, watch what happens here with the steam time. You can see here the steam's gone off and it's gone, now the steam's back on. So now with the steam off, the steam heater here won't be turned on. So what that means is if you've had the steam on and you turn it off, it's going to take quite some time, but eventually you'll see the steam temperature fall and it'll go somewhere below 130 degrees, heading towards whatever temperature the group temperature is set to. And if we normally use a machine with it off and then we want to go make our milk drink, our cappuccino or a latte or something, all we need to do to turn that steam on is we just load that profile. The steam will come on, it'll start heating up. We don't have to do anything else. We can start grinding our beans. We've got information that here that we normally use 18 grams for that, so I would weigh up my 18 grams. If it happens to go 18.1 grams, I would just tap this icon here so that it records what the actual weight was to my history file. So the way I use this is I put my my bean dosing container onto this, then I tear it, put my beans in, and just keep adding beans till I get to my desired weight, 18 grams. But sometimes it could be a 17.9, next bean goes to 18.1, so that's where the variation is. Or even though this recipe might be set up for 18 grams, if I was to use a darker roast, generally the darker the roast is, the lighter the bean is for the same volume. So if I was to use a really dark roast, I might want to go slightly below 18 grams, particularly in my case where I've got a custom group head part, so 18 grams in my 18 gram basket, the puck is very close to the screen. It's only a couple of grams would make it touch the screen. So if I was to use a light roast, I might want to increase that, 0.4, 0.5 grams, maybe a full gram. I might want to put 19 grams in, which fills the basket up the same as what a medium roast would if it was a really light roast, because darker beans are heavier, so you get less volume per bean, if that makes sense to you. So anyway, I would weigh that out, and then I'd tap this and it would record that volume there. So something else I'd like to show you here is that when I put I'll just load this blue cup here. When I put the app to sleep, so I don't turn my app off. That's the only function I do. I put it to sleep, so it shows this screensaver here. I use custom screensavers, which you can, that's a different topic about MySaver. And I've got some custom DSX plugins here that just keeps a record of how old my dogs are, just a thing. So, but anyway, the point here is when I wake up from screensaver, either by remotely, I use my iPhone using Apple Home, or I tap the screen. So if I tap the screen on this side, we wake up. Now you can see when I put it to sleep, I had this favourites loaded. When it's woken up, it's loaded this favourite here. And the reason it's doing that is if I go back into the back end here and I scroll through to the plugin, DSX plugin user interface, I've got a plugin here called Wake Up to Pink Cup. So on this side here, those are plugins that are turned off. Those are the ones that are active. Here you can see I've got Wake Up to Pink Cup, Wake Up to Orange Cup, Wake Up to Blue Cup. So if I select Wake Up to Blue Cup, it's now put that over this side. You can see it here. And I'm going to tap Wake Up to Pink Cup to remove it from this side. So this list doesn't change. It'll continually display all the plugins here, but this list will only show the ones that are active. So when you tap here, it'll add it to this side and then remove it from this side, but it doesn't remove from that side. So anyway, I've got the message here that it's been deactivated, and it's telling us that when we exit this page, the app's going to close down, which means we've got to restart it. So we'll do that, shutting down. So now I've got to restart the app. So I'll just move that into center there. Right, so now that's restarted. When I go and put that to sleep, and then I come back and wake that up, you can see it loaded that blue cup. So it's woke up from sleep mode and automatically loaded that cup. So that can be very handy if you normally use the steam heater off, for instance, for your morning coffee. when the machine wakes up in the morning to heat up, so you might have it on a timer or something, um, or however you're doing it. When the app wakes up, it's going to load your favourite for that morning shot. And then say in the afternoon you prefer the milk drink, then you would just tap that. It's then going to start that, set a time for the steam time, which is going to turn steam on, which means this will start heating up to our 165 degrees C. And then, of course, you can use it in the order. So I think we got pretty well everything covered with steam. Of course, if you have any questions, happy to answer them on Diaspora. Cheers.